wanted to tackle the issue of domestic violence or partner violence. There are some pretty frightening statistics that go along with that. So for instance, more than 31% of women in the United States have been physically abused by an intimate partner at some point in their lives. And more than 12 million men and women over the course of a year will experience this in the United States. I really wanted to give voice to that. This Is How We Love is basically a piano trio with a voice and electronics. I'm asking for some unusual things in the piece. For instance, our wonderful singer, Caleigh, is also playing percussive elements. She has a triangle and a kick drum. And the pianist, Sugar, in this instance, is performing exclusively inside the strings on the soundboard. We also have Yasha Narvison on this piece, providing some electronic reinforcement, specifically crafting a reverb landscape.
And reverb has always been associated with a kind of lost quality. Well, not always, often. In a lot of music, I think people use it, if they're not just using it to make it sound like it's in a room that it isn't in, if they're pushing it to be an effect, then it does impart a kind of lost sound a lot of the time. And I think that's probably what attracted Leaha to the idea of using heavy amounts of it, and she was quite specific about wanting heavy amounts of it by the end of the piece, which is always very fun. I feel like, especially if you're working on other people's music and mastering it and getting it ready, or even just your own music, reverb is always something you use kind of like salt. You might use a little bit, or, just little tasteful amounts, and so it's fun to just have someone say that they want lots and lots and lots of it. And working through the rehearsal just now, I thought a very natural way to shape that was actually the phrases that are being sung, and so I noticed that there's a lovely rhythm through the piece of these declamatory words, and then when they fade out, there's always a change in instrumental texture, and so I'm using that as a guide for thinking about how to layer in different amounts of reverb and maybe even have multiple ones working at the same time.
The message behind this piece is obviously extremely poignant and powerful, and when performing as a vocalist, you do have that decision whether or not you take on the character or whether or not you're a passive instrument. And with this piece, it is actually, I'm realizing, kind of a difficult choice, because while wanting to be very much involved in the character, because of the added instruments that I'm responsible for, completely abandoning myself into the character is impossible. So I think that for this piece, because the subject matter requires that emotional dedication, I think finding the balance is going to be the most important part of it.
It's just so personal. I wanted to abstract it a little bit to speak for anyone who might have gone through that, to find a way in to such a difficult topic. So the word set ended up being pretty small, but powerful. So Caleigh is singing just a few words, and those words are love, shame, hate, and fear. And they cycle through the piece just as a cycle of violence would occur. You fight, you make up, or you get out, it's not so bad. All these things that we associate with partner violence, domestic violence. So that's kind of the cycle of the work, and those words keep unfolding and the music keeps building as we progress.